Hi everyone, how's it going? Thanks for coming to the session. The session is called Secrets of Visual Effects Wizardry, which is a name I did not come up with. It was thrust upon me by Adobe. Anyway, my name is Michael Shanks. I'm a filmmaker based in Melbourne. I'm a writer-director, but I also do more practical stuff within the film world, including visual effects. And I guess today I'm here to kind of talk a little bit about the processes that I go through to get to that point, and also the way in which I use Adobe software, specifically After Effects, in order to kind of achieve the effects stuff that I do, and how that kind of relates to the creative process, and how visual effects is more than just like this techie thing. You can actually use it to really kind of bolster your storytelling in other ways, I guess. I'm also a nervous public speaker, so enjoy. So I work in Melbourne predominantly with a company called Late Night Films, where we produce far less pornographic content than it suggests. I also have a YouTube channel called TimTimFed, on which you'll find a bunch of sort of weird action comedy visual-based content. And yeah, so as a little bit of backstory for me, the reason that I felt confident venturing into this industry was actually watching After Effects tutorials when I was in high school. I kind of thought, like, if this Andrew Kramer can do it, then why can't I? And suddenly the barrier of entry into the film world made a lot more sense to me, because I wanted to be able to like tell stories with like explosions and dumb stuff like that. And seeing that, oh, I can just do that if I spend a lot of time on my computer rather than like trying to get laid, then awesome. So in my final week of high school, I actually created a sort of short film entry to a film competition for a gaming website called The Escapist Magazine. And it won, this little short film that I'd made, and the prize was a contract to create a 25-part web series, which was called Doomsday Arcade. And so this was kind of my first foray into filmmaking. It was kind of a video game parody based, which I've always thought of as the highest form of artwork. And you can see it's, you know, here's just like a little reel of some of the stuff that I was doing. It was almost like the creative process on that was kind of, what cool effects can I do and how can I make those into jokes? And that's sort of where that stuff originated. To kind of show you how far I've come in terms of like the visual effects side, here is an effects shot from the original episode of that. Pretty good stuff. Anybody here work in visual effects can tell me what was wrong with that shot? Correct, nothing. I liked how the beige walls were overexposed, but the flames were not. And to give you an idea of some of my more recent work, here's a little short reel of some other stuff that I've done.
Terrible sportsmanship.
That's just not cricket.
No, it's tennis.
For a point of reference, I think all the visual effects that you saw in that was completed within, my syntax is all wrong, but that was all done in After Effects. You would have noticed there's some 3D stuff in there, but that was done in Element 3D, which is housed inside of After Effects. And so really, it's kind of a world in which I've lived for the last sort of 10 years, actually, that I've been working on this stuff. TimTimFed is my YouTube channel, which is sort of you know, I haven't really been putting stuff out on it in recent times. It's not really where my focuses are. But, you know, for some stats, we've got over 43 million views, 150,000 plus subscribers. And I recommend checking it out if you liked what you saw. But whatever, do what you want. But one thing that I think was unique about the content that I was putting out on this channel, which helped me kind of connect with an audience that was beyond Australia, it's like an international audience, was the fact that I do most of my storytelling, a lot of my comedy via dialogue-less visual comedy. Like, it's almost like live-action cartoons is a lot how I like to stage things. And again, without knowing in my back pocket, like, oh, I reckon I could put a tank into this tennis court because I know that an element, if I import a 3D model of a tank, I can do yada, 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 yada. And that's been wonderful because the idea of actually approaching like full 3D software is like so daunting for me. But anyway, after the sort of moderate success of this YouTube channel, I caught the eye of Screen Australia, and they got in touch about funding a series, and we made a series which was developed for web but ended up screening on SBS2 called The Wizards of AUS. Has anybody here seen it? Everyone? Cool, great. Here's a short little trailer for that.
I mean, that's a fucking bummer.
And so that's why you migrated to Melbourne, is it?
Anywhere in the human realm would have been fine.
G'day, matey potato!
Why can't you just leave me alone?
Oh, well, I heard you'd moved to the human realm, and I thought, sounds like a bit of fun.
Yeah, so I think that's kind of a good example of weird indie comedy on a shoestring of a budget. It's also a great example on why not to cast your visual effects guy in the lead role. So that's easily been my biggest project to date, and I'm not really going to be talking about that today, but my producer Chris Hocking and I actually spoke at NAB for the Adobe brand a couple of years back, and we break down some of the big, massive visual effects shots from that, and I recommend checking out that talk if you want to kind of get in on that. We talk about how we, basically using a 2.5D particle system inside of After Effects, we were able to create like a massive battle shot with hundreds of knights and goblins fighting all inside of an AE composition. So yeah, that's all big, blustery visual effects shots. And today I'm sort of going to be talking more about the less showy visual effects, the way that we can kind of create magic by little tricks that you can do in After Effects. But just back on kind of the creative thing, when I was writing The Wizards of Oz with my writing partner Nick, we didn't want to be inhibited by budget. And if any of you guys in here are sort of indie filmmakers, you know that if you write an idea, the first thing that happens is you almost look at the script and go, oh, we can't afford to do that, we can't afford to do that, this is insane, this is insane. And I just wanted to write a cartoon, basically, a live-action cartoon. And if you think of something like Rick and Morty, what's wonderful about that show is the creativity is uninhibited by budget, because theoretically, it costs as much to draw a scene with Rick and Morty on a couch as it does to draw a scene of them in a space volcano on the moon. And having this kind of After Effects knowledge in my back pocket as both the writer and the director really enabled me to not be afraid to go into that realm. It really helped us kind of write crazy stuff that I feel like other people wouldn't even want to go near. But there are downsides to obsessively working on a computer in After Effects all day, every day.
So visual effects must be fun then for you?
Yeah, you know, like sometimes if I do feel lonely, I can use it to cheer myself up. Like I can take footage of myself like this, and then I'll just come up to the roto brush tool and remove myself and maybe go and find some stock footage and search for something like friends celebrating. And well, that looks like fun. So I'll grab that clip and I'll pull it in, and then using some paint and roto tools, I can get rid of that guy, and then maybe track the shot, and then we can add our own elements. I'll start by improving the scene, and then we can put some text in the background like that.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, sick, man.
Yeah, okay, and now I can cut you guys out too.
Oh, careful. I like my limbs.
Shh, Christian, don't move a muscle.
And now we're having a party.
Hey.
Now say, well done, Michael, you're a good friend.
But we hardly know you.
Say it.
Just do it. Well done, Michael, you're a good friend.
Say it again.
Well done, Michael, you're a good friend.
Okay, now with a smile, you're having fun. Say it again.
Well done, Michael, you're a good friend.
Again.
Well done, Michael, you're a good
Say
friend.
it again.
Well done, Michael, you're a good friend.
Again.
Well done, Michael, you're a good friend. Well done, Michael, you're a good friend. Well done, Michael, you're a good friend.
And I will watch this in the night times.
I haven't watched that in like a year. I slightly regret including that. So that was from a Foxtel show called The Slot. So that was for a show called The Slot, which came out, it's still 2018, yeah, it came out this year, which was kind of like using online comedy creators to make content for a Foxtel show, because that's where the audience is. Just kidding. Anyway. Yeah, so I kind of started... So I started this presentation, showing off some of the more blustery visual effects shots, and now I'm going to talk about how it can be used for just like kind of more minor things to help enhance your kind of low budget productions. Where am I at with this? I don't have the clip from this, unfortunately, but like this is the most basic way you can use visual effects to help with your budget. For this show, The Slot, we did a series of 3 sketches which were inverted conspiracy theories, and one of them was we had a pair of big feet, or we had a trio of big feet trying to stage that they'd found a small foot by dressing up as a human and like walking through the woods whilst the others filmed it and made it look like it was real footage. We had like no money to make this, but we had just enough money to hire an amazing makeup artist, Marie Kelly, to turn me into Bigfoot, but we only had one costume, and so just basically, this is the simplest visual effect of all time. It is a split screen. But in split screening, we saved so much money, because if we had gotten to get not only 2, but 3 big feet for the scene, it would have been a nightmare. So that's just a really kind of basic way that that sort of thing could be used. This next one, I'll just show a short clip of this. Anybody know Alex Jones? We all love Alex Jones. He kind of believes that reptilian shape-shifting lizards are secretly running the government. So we posited a world whereby a lizard Jones was secretly convinced that shape-shifting humanoids were running the reptilian government. I'll just a short clip of this.
Say, is that what a lizard looks like?
So that's from a much larger sketch, but I'll just show you a couple of ways that we enhance some of the footage of that inside of After Effects, and I'll do a little kind of demo through of this. Forgive me, I'm on a Mac. I do not use Macs because I am a gamer loser. Cool, is that working? Great, awesome. So as you would have seen in that final shot there, sorry, let me find where I am on this. Yeah, obviously the background was all realized with a green screen because we didn't have access to a full studio with a kind of massive screen to go. So that's just some simple After Effects-y stuff. But that's more obvious. Like one of the things that was so simple and it doesn't look great, but it really helps to kind of enhance the joke is this this kind of tongue effect when the fly comes past in here. Yep. Like this is the stupidest and worst visual effect in history, but it completely does the job. And the simplicity of this is literally taking this really shoddy 2D element. Let me just come down to this. Yeah, this is way more pro than Andrew Kramer, you know. This is it. Wow, what an effect! So what I did is I just found I think they're called JPEGs of a frog's tongue. Just added the old puppet tool, which have you guys all used the puppet tool in here before in After Effects? It's just a great way to easily manipulate 2D as almost like rigged animation without having to rig it. So you, I'll just kind of do a version of it here to give you an idea. With very minimal animation, I'll just delete that puppet tool. Come up here to the puppet tool, and you just click, blang, blang, blang. You have to make the noises, and then that automatically sets a keyframe for those 3 pins at that position. And then if you scrub ahead, just 5 frames, you can just move that around now as though it was kind of a spaghetti rig, and just automatically that tweens in between. And so basically by doing that super simply, as well as just animating the position of the whole object to go bup bup, you suddenly have, a tongue. That's what it's doing. It's almost as good as Aliens. Just by having that, you have somewhat of an effect going on that you just don't have to render a full tongue in 3D, don't have to go through all of that. Anyway, that was a bit of a bust. Let's move on to the next bit of the shot. Going back to our problems in terms of makeup, we didn't really have budget to do extents, we spent it all on his lizard face, which looks so good, but he's got human eyes, and we didn't want to get contacts or have the actor suffer through that. So just thought I'd give him some eyes inside of After Effects, and this is the simplest little effect here. So firstly, I'll just come down to the footage using a Mac, god damn it. and come up and I'll track this inside of Mocha AE. So people here have used Mocha inside of After Effects. It's like a planar tracker that now comes linked in it. It's going to ask me to register, and I'm going to say later, and then I'm going to say that every later. Yep, override that. But the great thing about using Mocha as opposed to just the point tracker is that the point tracker can be finicky. Well, there's numerous reasons why it's better than that. The planar tracker can actually cover an area and track an area rather than just points. So just to do the most rudimentary eye track, I'll just draw an X-spline over this eye, and an X-spline over that eye there. I'll call that one right, I'll call that one left, and then just hit track forward. I'm not going to go through the whole shot, but you can see there it's already tracking that, and even it's about to do a big punch zoom. You can see, max. That's still sticking to the face and still doing a really great job of that track, even after that big crash zoom. And essentially, you can just export that tracking data. I think I just did positional data here and copied that over to a null, and then linked the shoddiest image of this lizard eye to that null, which ends us up with toggle switches. There's no F4 and then no trackman. Okay. With this effect, which is flawless, right? No, because the eyes needed to be matte. So I've actually done these eye mattes inside of Mocha again to just keep the eye within the frame, and that's so simple to do. And to show you how easy and powerful Mocha is, let's just come back in here. We'll go to the kind of back to where we first started tracking. I'm just going to quickly draw a little B-spline around the eye. This is a really dodgy little job I'm doing here, so forgive me. And I'll just rename that as Matt. Now, without having to do any more tracking, I can just link this to what we've already tracked, and it basically does the rotoscoping for us. So if I come down to now R, if I scrub, whoop, wrong way. If I scrub through, you can see that's already stuck to the eye there. And even when we go in on that zoom, that's still stuck to that eye, which is pretty damn cool. Like, that's almost no keyframes, and I've got a rotor with the eye there. So coming back into this, let's turn off those mats and make that the alpha mat over that. And yeah, you can see we've now got this kind of lizard eye look, which is, all the rage with the teens. Another one of the sketches from our reverse conspiracy theories was we did an alien UFO sighting. But the twist was like, it's all first person, and it's like, oh my god, what is that, what is that? And there's kind of lights in the sky. And eventually the camera turns around and it reveals like a classic, I believe they're called extraterrestrials, like a gray alien with the big black eyes, and then he gets abducted aboard a 747 human airliner. And that's kind of the gag. So in this opening shot, I'll just quickly run through this. Needed to make a we went out to this farm in Werribee to get this kind of spooky footage. I might just bump up the exposure because it's pretty dark. Is that helpful? Yeah, cool. Kind of nice grainy footage. And again, don't really need to go through it, but using Mocha again, that's a pretty hard shot to track because there's all sorts of weird movement, and it's so grainy and it's so dark. But using the Mocha planar tracker, you can just select like these shapes on the back that the point tracker would totally struggle with, and that gives us a nice little, a fairly good shot track. I won't take through that because that's just kind of boring, but you can see there that's tracked pretty well. And then I just built a little UFO element inside of After Effects using literally just masks. It's just a white layer with some masks on it, and then a red layer with 2 other little masks on it, and that's kind of giving us this sort of UFO kind of feeling, which could also be a plane, so it doesn't betray that. And then right above that, putting in a lens flare on top of that, and the classic, somewhat ubiquitous now, Red Giant Universe VHS plugin. But let me turn that down now because it's a little brighter. But excuse me. Playing that back, we now have a fairly authentic-looking piece of fake footage, which is so simple. If you guys have used After Effects, one of the kind of challenging things to do is to get a lens flare to actually track to your object. Like it's a pretty rudimentary thing, but you can't just take the pick whip and parent it to the other layer. Like you've got to do a little bit of coding. But there's a great plugin which I really recommend called Quick Lens Flare, and I'll just show you it over here. And if I go down to It's called Quick Lens Flare. It's on AE scripts at a pay what you want rate, and I really recommend it, and throwing them a couple of bucks. You come down to Quick Lens Flare here. Let's hope this works on this new Mac. And it just automatically comes up with a window saying, what do you want, your flare type, optical flares or default lens flares? I'm going to go with optical flares, the Video Copilot plugin, and create it as a 3D null. Create. And that creates you a kind of ready-to-go lens flare layer with all the options of optical flares to come inside of that to play around, make it let's say kind of that's kind of nice. But what's great about this is it's already linked to a null without having to do any extra programming or coding. You can just drag that around, and therefore you can say put it over there and immediately link it to your shot track using the pick whip, and now hey, we got ourselves a really bright UFO, which is kind of fun. But that wasn't the key element of the shoot that we needed to get down. The main thing we needed to get down was our alien character. And that's just that thing again. This was the makeup that we had, except even that is fake. That was what we had, which doesn't really look like an alien in the way that we needed that to visually communicate. It looked more, I don't know, what does that look like? Some sort of like swamp monster? Which is kind of awesome, but it wouldn't work. So using the exact same technique that we just used on the lizard shot, so I won't bother demonstrating that again. Using that same planar track around the eyes to get that data, did that, and then applied that really, really simply into these layers. So this is just again an animal's eye. I forget what it is. But just kind of line that up with our footage, apply our Mocha track to it. And we suddenly have an enhanced version of an alien. Still doesn't look great. Also, that track's a little sloppy, but pretend it's not. So to make that even better, what we need to do is really change the shape of the face, because that is what, it's that almond-sized kind of swole head. That's the important thing. So has everybody seen the Video Copilot and like demon face tutorial? It's like the most seen thing anyway. So we're basically using that effect again. We are using a reverse stabilization in order to power the track of a liquefy effect. That sounded really boring and nerdy. And it is, which is great. So I'll take this footage here into Mocha. I hope that it's the file format that it will. Track Mocha AE. In that technique, we talked about using the point tracker again to get a stable sort of track on the face of the actor. Yeah, that'll do. But what's really fun about using Mocha is, again, you can kind of get a bit of an... like you almost get like a more averaged, a more evened out version of stabilizing a large area. So we want to stabilize this face. So what I'll just do is just draw a real quick X-spline around the forehead here. Basically, the way that this works is you want to kind of keep everything on the same plane. That's kind of how Mocha works, as I understand it, which is probably wrong. And just track through to that. So that's tracking, but using that tracking data, we can actually use that to power a stabilize effect. And you can really easily see that inside of Mocha by hitting this button up here, which is kind of the activate quick stabilize mode, as it's telling me. And so if I do that whilst we track, it kind of automatically stabilizes the footage as you're tracking it to give you an idea of that. So yeah, so that's working pretty well. So if I come back into After Effects, oh, by the way, the way to export that is you export it, go to export tracking data, and you can do corner pin or, no, you need transform actually, excuse me. So you export it as transform data, but you want to click the invert button. So rather than exporting the track, it's exporting the inverse of that, so it's already doing that kind of awkward calculation of the stabilizer. Copy that, and come back through and paste it over. So here is one I prepared earlier. Again, I'll just kind of up the exposure a little bit. This is it, roughly stabilizing. Well, that eye's in the wrong place. Let's just pretend that's not there. Cool. So now we've stabilized that face, we can come back into this comp here. And I've done a little reverse stabilization thing, which you'll be able to find if you look at that demon face warp effect of video tutorial. And then it's apply liquefy to it. So like we could come in here and just grab the thing and kind of, I don't know, add some cool spikes to make him look like some sort of lizard king. And playing through, that now tracks. So now we have a nice, nice lizard king in our comp, which is always fun. Or what I did for the actual shot was turn on this liquefy effect here to kind of, as they'd say in The Simpsons, embiggen the head. And yeah, chuck the visual effects, the VHS effect on top of that. It's going to chug a little bit to render, but damn, Max. You kind of see there, like, that is such a marked improvement on what we started as. And in terms of communicating, there's an alien we couldn't have in the script. Hello, I'm an alien, and I'm so scared. Like, you have to get that so instantly. So from that to that is a massive difference in terms of communicating character. Yeah, let's... where exactly? So on this lizard sketch, in this world whereby lizards kind of run the planet, I thought as the way to end it, he should bring up a little lizard kind of cage whereby this universe's equivalent of a lizard would live, which is a tiny little human. And so I needed a naked human to be in the scene. So I spoke to my buddy Tom, and I was like, hey Tom, haven't seen you in a while. Do you want to come get naked at my house? Don't worry, I'll be filming it. And he reluctantly, he came around in it, but we ended up negotiating to a point whereby he'll keep his jocks on. And I was like, that's fine, because my neighbors can see everything in my backyard. And so we settled on jocks, and we ended up shooting that. It was a pretty fun day. And then using the power of After Effects, I removed his pants and gave him a digital penis. So, you know, After Effects is bringing friendships closer together.
God damn it! Is this what our forefathers fought for? Is this what you want, running this country?
Hello.
Open your eyes, people!
Yeah. Anyway, let's get through this. This is just that alien sketch, but I've kind of talked through that. So, haha, no watching for you. That was me in the makeup on the day. Yeah, there was one little demo I was hoping to get through today, but unfortunately, due to a tech issue, I'm not going to be able to go through it. But I just wanted to briefly touch on some 4D videogrammetry stuff that I was able to realize inside of After Effects using Element 3D. This was for a music video for Guy Pearce called Broken Bones, and I'll just play a little excerpt from the clip in order to give you an idea of what I'm talking about.
All that scolding and all you're holding down, I see you've taken on broken bones, buried deep beneath this ground you've fallen on.
So that was another project whereby the tech kind of informed the idea. Like, I was really interested in 4D when I sort of saw it kind of becoming to be a thing, and I liked the idea of the aesthetic of kind of combining something natural with something like really digital and inorganic, and that's where the 4D came into place, to kind of have something that from a distance looks quite realistic, and the closer you get to it, you can see these imperfections, you can see this kind of digitalized sort of simulacrum of a human. Yeah, and so that was entirely rendered within After Effects, within Element 3D, which I keep talking about, assuming everybody knows, but it is basically a 3D particle system that also allows the importation of OBJs and OBJ sequences, so essentially kind of 3D sequences of data. And we went and we actually captured this data in Japan. So the way that 4D works, if somebody doesn't know, is it is a capturing of... It's basically like filming in 3D. So every single frame becomes a 3D object that is naturally and automatically modeled and textured based on what you're actually shooting in the room. So these are kind of the results that we ended up with. So to film it, we went into this 4D capture studio, which is just a full green screen surrounded by cameras, and it was really, really cool. And what we got as data out of that was a sequence of OBJ objects with textures, and kind of here's an idea of what that looked like inside of After Effects. And yes, you get the white. Oh, hey, I got a laser pointer. Nice. So that's obviously the untextured 3D model, and that is the textured 3D model. I don't know if it would have looked less or more weird had Guy not had a bald head at the time. But it's great. It's like automatically capturing the stuff in 3D, and I was really worried about how I was going to end up using that data, but being able to import it into Element and then for inside of After Effects, which is kind of the only software I know how to use because I'm a big dum-dum, really kind of saved our ass on this cliff, which was really fun. And I wanted to open that up in Element and kind of show you some stuff about that, but it's fairly self-explanatory. to TBH. Oh, cool. So kind of moving on to the next section, I just wanted to play an excerpt from a sketch that I made this year with Auntie Donna, if you guys know Auntie Donna at all. And we were kind of making fun of the kind of YouTube magician thing. If you've ever heard of like a guy named Zach King, who's like an Instagram YouTube star who just like, his magic trick is he knows how to rotoscope, which is so weird. But anyway, I'll play a little clip of that.
Hey dudes, we're Auntie Donna, and today we're doing a collab with our boy Michael Shanks, aka Tim Fed.
Say dudes, anyone know where I can get a Frankfurter?
I think I can help. Ready for Christmas.
Oh, cool, yeah.
Michael, where'd this dog...
She's probably tired and thirsty.
Did someone say thirsty?
Oh, no.
Oh,
Drinker.
Hey, is this a man? Shanksy! This guy would like a word.
Words? You need oxygen for words.
Yeah, what do you mean?
That sketch goes on for much longer and gets way worse. And I also had to cut a shot from earlier in that because that also featured a penis. And Adobe did not want too many penises in this production, in this presentation. But I thought I'd kind of show you how we made that shot, which is like conceptually such a simple shot, but I think can kind of feel complicated until you sort of see the moving parts of it. So Chris, if we could switch it back to the, hey, there we go, look at that nice dissolve transition. So that first shot where I kind of throw these 3 hats onto the guys, let's just take a little look at the footage we shot in order to pull that off. So that's the first half of the shot. And then the second half of the shot is this. So yeah, pretty stupid stuff, but it's actually really easy to kind of tie that stuff together, but it can feel a little complicated, as I was saying. So I just thought I'd kind of take you through that comp, and sorry that we don't have a huge amount of kind of screen space here, but okay, so that's turned off. So one of the things that saved us is that often these kind of Vine compilation sketches were made for Vine, so it's more kind of a vertical 4:3 ratio. So we shot 16:9 and knew that we were going to be cropping to 4:3, meaning that we can add so much fake camera movement, shake, and zooms, etc. And basically we'll disguise a lot of cuts in the motion blur. And so here's kind of what the shot looked like without the camera movement and without a couple of extra elements. So I'll explain kind of this more in a moment, but it's very funny to just have that. And Zach's face has, for some reason, not worked on this computer, so sorry, Zach. But now I'm just going to enable a little tint color effect that I've done on this to show you each different element is going to be a different color. So to play that back now, full screen now. So really simple stuff. So essentially, we're freezing those guys. Oh, laser pointer, that's right. We're freezing those guys over there during a point where I know we're going to zoom in on a 4:3 aspect ratio to cover them. And then as the hat's thrown, basically using just really simple kind of Mocha-aided rotoscoping to rotoscope out the hat that I actually threw, and then adding a, I don't know if you can see it there, but yeah, that little arc, just animating it every single hat so that it landed on the person's head, and then during the throw of that, having a camera move which follows the hats really quick so that we can kind of hide a cut in there. The element that didn't quite work was that when everybody froze and then we did the other take, is Mark, who's Mark on the end here, his arm is really far down there, and then when we cut back, his arm is there. So what I needed to do was the stupidest effect of all time, which was, again, using our friend the puppet tool, is to rotoscope out Mark's arm, get the puppet tool, you know, kind of as I showed before, add the pins, and then just animate the arm. Wow, what an effect. So yeah, that looks like total crap. And here's that, you know, in the scene. Whatever. But then going to this comp here where I can show you with the camera. This is what we're doing behind the scenes for that. And yeah, sorry, that's quite small. But so this is how much we're actually moving the footage around. And so by the time that the camera gets kind of back to its main point, that's when it all turns green and becomes the same take again. And I'll show you that now with the border and the camera kind of involved. Here is, hold on, let me go fit and yeah, kind of have a look at this. And it's in those big camera moves we can really kind of hide a lot of stuff. I hope that sort of somewhat makes sense. Also, another one just quickly to go through that Fanta shot, but it's exactly the same kind of premise. So, you know, here is the shot, I think, as it kind of ends up. The idea that we're turning him into Fanta, and now going into the. But you can see there I've already done the camera movement in that. You can see kind of what's. Anyway, I'll open this up and. So again, to show you kind of the colored version of this. So it's basically one take of a. Actually, I've got it in here. This will play better. And then we have this take. And then we hold as we replace with a full bottle of Fanta. And again, when you watch the finish like effect, like that is the earliest visual effect, isn't it? Is just you hold still, you cut, and then you resume. But there's something about adding the camera shake to it, as well as just doing some pretty basic rotoscoping to put me in front of Ben in this shot here, as you can see. So just turn the effects off on that. That was a you know, haunting. Da 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 da. That's my new Tinder profile pic. And that's just a simple key using like the extract tools if we know how to use that in After Effects. I mean, I should probably demo that, but it's fairly self-explanatory. But I'll just show you if anybody doesn't know. So we're not in front of a green screen there, but we're trying to get me out of it. And obviously we're doing some rotoscoping like we did in Mocha with masks traced around the edges. But the easiest way to do it is like, hey, that wall is a lighter color than most of me. So if we just come down here and type in extract, it's just a simple Luma key. Pull that down and just kind of focus on this section of the frame as we kind of, I mean, my skin's pretty pale, so that'll go, but like that's instantly the shirt is now rotoed. You just kind of feather that off a little bit. And that gets us most of the way there. So that was sort of some of the process for that. We're getting pretty close to the end, guys. Sorry. If we want to just go back to the slide, I guess I've just kind of shown this stuff off, but here's sort of a loop of how we managed to hide some of those cuts. And I would recommend, if you're interested in that sort of thing, maybe watching that whole sketch. You can find it on Auntie Donna's YouTube channel. So yeah, cool guys. Well, I'll be hanging out around here for a few minutes if anyone wants to, you know, ask anything after the session. But thank you guys so much for coming. I've been Michael Shanks. You can follow me online at TimTimFed, whatever that means. And yeah, thanks a lot for coming, everyone. Cheers.